Welcome to the Resume Storyteller, bringing you interviews with industry experts, regular folks who tested the job search waters and succeeded, and strategies to tell your story and land you job interviews. Here's your host, Virginia Franco.
Hey guys, welcome to the Storyteller podcast. I have with me today career management coach and resume writer, Teegan Bartos. She's a certified career management coach along with being a resume writer, and she has helped a lot of ambitious professionals to level up their careers for the past decade, working for Department of Labor agencies and as a founder of Jolt Your Career. After having worked with clients as Cook County's reduction in force case manager, a career coach for Job Corps, and in her personal practice, her goal has remained unchanged: to give clients the tools that they need for professional success, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. Teegan, the two of us jumped on this call 5 minutes ago, and I just learned that she has many roles that she's juggling at this time. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with this audience. I love what you post on LinkedIn, and I can't wait to talk.
Oh, thank you so much. And I love what you're doing for Job Search Secret Weapon. I always love to see when you guys launch new products.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And that has been a labor of love. So thank you for saying that. So you heard me give just the briefest 3-sentence overview of what you do. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you came to be in the position.
Yeah, absolutely. So I never had intentions on being a career coach. But it was
most people don't. They don't even know it's a thing.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
It was evidently fated though, because my sophomore year in college, I was a part of a psychology internship pilot program for my school. And while I was there, a volunteer didn't show up. And so they said, "Oh, well, you're a college student. Can you help these new grads with their resumes?" And I'm thinking, what do I know about resumes? I didn't. I had no idea. And so 2 years later, I was in my criminal justice internship with Cook County Juvenile Detention Facility, and it was rescinded due to the 2008 recession. Mm-hmm. The unions, they just weren't allowing interns during that time. So Job Corps was nice enough to let me come back. That's a program ran by the Department of Labor. It's essentially a trade program.
Right.
And so they let me come back so I could graduate, and oddly enough had me teaching career preparation classes. So after I graduated, I accepted a position with them and was teaching career preparation. So foundational resume writing, interview prep, how to figure out what you want to do with your career. Should I go to this trade or that trade? What are the things involved in different career paths? And from there, I was, rapidly promoted. I ended up spearheading a leadership program there, and fate intervened in 2015 when I was hit by a fuel tanker semi-truck.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So,
I'm registering that.
Yeah. So have you ever seen those semi-trucks where they have like the triangles underneath the belly of them with the different types of fuel?
Yeah. Don't they explode when people hit them?
They typically do. But luckily I had just traded cars with my little sister because she needed reliable transportation. So she took my SUV and I had her little, starter car, and that little thing slid right underneath it, tore the roof completely off. Fortunately for me, I was pinned underneath the windshield, and I was not beheaded, but I did have enough neurological issues that I needed to recover from that I wasn't cleared to return to work. So,
oh my gosh, so the little unsafe car saved your life.
Yeah, yes, it was like a blessing in disguise. So that really was a turning point in my career. It was very, very difficult to have so much success early on in my career, being rapidly promoted, being recognized by not only the agency that I was working for, but also in Department of Labor audits for implementing innovative best practices, to it just saying, okay, you can't work until the swelling in your brain goes down.
Oh my gosh.
I actually started writing resumes to make a little extra money while I recovered.
Right.
And so at the time, I had no idea resume writing was a job or that people actually paid for it.
Yeah.
So I charged $50 a resume. Which,
I bet you had a lot of clients. That's how I started too.
Yeah, I sure did. And I was like, this is too much work for $50. So I did eventually return to work when I was cleared to go back to work. And I was the reduction in force case manager for Cook County. So reduction in force is very familiar to people now during this pandemic. But when I was the reduction in force case manager, we weren't in a pandemic. It was more so companies were going through digital transformations,
right.
And anybody who didn't meet that criteria was let go, or potentially there was some outsourcing things going on. So I had a really cool experience where I was working directly with HR leaders at these Fortune 500, 100 companies throughout Chicago. Got an inside look at their applicant tracking systems, worked closely with recruiters and learned, from the inside at these, top companies, how they sorted through recs, how they made hiring decisions, how they made firing decisions, learned how to really effectively articulate someone's career story in a way that resonated with not only the recruiter and the hiring manager, right. but stayed authentic, to that candidate. But I was eventually poached to become a recruiter myself. And
oh wow! So you got to see it on the other side.
Yeah, and I learned a big lesson then. Money is not everything. I did not enjoy that experience and disliked it so much. I quit when I was 4 months pregnant. So I began writing. I bet you learned a lesson in
really that career exploration and self-assessment process that so many of us skip. Yes. When one part of what's important to us seems to be hit with this new opportunity.
Yeah, at the time I had no idea how much helping people drove me, and so self-reflection is really hard because it's hard to read the label when you're in the jar.
Yeah.
And so when you're so close to something, it's really difficult to evaluate, what are your drivers. You can think but until you're until something changes, you don't truly know, or at least in my case, that's how it worked for me.
Okay, so you quit and you're 4 months pregnant.
Yep. I began writing resumes full time, which worked out perfectly because I stayed up all night while I was nursing the baby, working on people's resumes. And, he naps 3 times a day. So I was able to take client calls all throughout the day and all throughout the night and on weekends. So it was fantastic. And, it just organically grew. I eventually started receiving or pursued training and coaching. Mm-hmm. And so right now I'm working on my International Coaching Federation certificate.
Oh, your IFC. Okay.
Yeah. So
and then you're also earning a master's, correct?
So I'm dipping my toe into that. I'm actually going through Northwestern's organizational leadership spectrum program.
Okay.
So if I decide to pursue my master's, all of those credits will count. But I'm not sure if I'm going to go that route or not yet. I guess I need some coaching for myself to get some clarity on that.
Right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with coaches hiring coaches.
Oh, I'm a firm believer in it.
Yeah, same.
It always helps to have a person cheering you on and helping, give an additional perspective.
Well, I love, and I didn't realize that you had such a unique perspective, really getting that bird's or that insider's view of what is going on at the tippy top of these companies, and then going to see what it's like on the recruiter side.
Yeah. And even now, as a career coach, I work with my individual clients, but I also work with multiple corporate clients. And I'm not exactly sure how that started, but somehow, I was referred to a cannabis startup and helped them get their funding. So, rebranded their LinkedIns and their resumes and their professional portfolios. And right now I'm also am a career coach for Korn Ferry, and I am a LinkedIn instructor for a financial institution for their Emerging Leaders program. And like I told you before we went live, just rewrote the Department of Labor Job Corps career development curriculum. And that's what I'm doing my capstone project in for Northwestern. So I'm all over the place, which is,
but it's giving you just a real, I'm sure you're exhausted, but it is really giving you a really wide breadth of experience from which to be able to advise people.
Yeah, it's very helpful because I'm still kind of early on in my career. I know a lot about certain things, but I'm very curious. And so it's helping me do that. But yes, it is exhausting.
And how old is your little one now?
Yes, my little one is about to turn 3 in February. So that is my number one job.
Oh my goodness. Given that you have now such a broad breadth of experience across really all aspects of job search now, I would love to hear from you if there are a couple of challenges or common challenges that you are finding that people that are job searching are facing today.
Yeah, I think, now more than ever, it's really a challenge for people to stand out on the job market. I primarily work with ambitious professionals, and sometimes they get so caught up in making an impact in their current role, they forget to nurture their relationships and genuinely take the time to think about what they want from their career. So I see this as a common challenge. Because it really sets those people back from people who've been intentional about driving their career.
No, I think that and I see that too, because I do work with people they're very, very driven. And so they mistakenly cultivate their networks and nurture their career paths when they're looking. But then once they land, they hit pause on that.
Right. Yep. And being comfortable is never a good thing.
No, and then they are they're stranded. And the people that land are the ones that have always maintained those networks. Doesn't mean that they see them on a regular basis, but they do a very good job of keeping lightly in touch.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
Is there something that you find your clients are just surprised by when they do start job hunting?
That's such a difficult question for me because I work with interesting characters. So, sometimes I've got the really ambitious, emerging leader. And then sometimes I'm working with their new grad kid who does not want to leave dad's couch.
So you really get the spectrum. Okay.
So
the things they're surprised by are very different then.
Kind of. I mean, career coach to career coach, I guess the easiest way to describe it is job search fundamentals. People are surprised at how important, the basics are, the having clarity in their job search or their career progression strategy, or how big the role of leveraging your network is and really what it takes to land at a job at the target company. So like the majority of clients I've worked with, regardless of where they're at in their career, have never thought of creating like ROI projects. So, creatives always have a professional portfolio. But people in other industries seem to not really think about it, at least the ones I work with. And then a lot of executives, they know they need to come up with a 30, 60, 90-day plan. But those emerging leaders, to really stand out, they need to have those too. And even if you're not an emerging leader, even if you're a mid-level leader, having the strategy and the clarity of going into an interview prepared with a 30, 60, 90-day plan for what you've already learned in the recruitment process really makes you stand out. And so just those fundamentals, it seems my clients are surprised by. And I find it interesting because I always use the analogy, well, you wouldn't buy a car without taking it for a test drive, regardless how amazing the commercial is. Your resume alone is not going to get you the job. So why would an employer want to hire you without seeing some type of sample of your work or like a glimpse into the thought process when approaching situations.
Now, what are your thoughts on when, because I've seen this discussion in many forums that they say, they asked me to do a case study, they asked me to do all this, and then they took it. And so the concern is you're giving, why buy the cow if you can buy the milk for free? And I've heard points for and against it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I feel like it's unfortunate if an organization lacks integrity, but you dodged a bullet.
Yes, 100%.
You probably would not want to work. If that's going to bother you, then you wouldn't have wanted to work for that company anyways.
That was a cheap way to learn that, right?
Yep. And so to avoid situations like that, do your research, really find out. I mean, in the digital era, you can find out everything. You can look on Glassdoor and find out interview questions that they've asked. Shoot, you can go on YouTube and people will have a vlog of, I just had my interview at Facebook and these were the questions they asked. And so there's so much information out there, that if you're willing to do a little bit of research, you will find out a lot. But if you're willing to do a deep dive into the research to really have a targeted approach to what companies you're going to apply at, you're less likely to experience those frustrations.
And there is so much out there. Sometimes I caution people with reviews and things like that, because in my experience, people write reviews when they're really happy or really mad. You don't tend to get the more neutral people, but you can use LinkedIn's filters to find people that have maybe left that company. And, you might just get a couple people that tell you things. And if one person says one thing, you don't think much about it. But if 2 or 3 people say the same thing, then you might have a threat.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's really good advice. And you're right. If you dodging a bullet costs you a couple hours of making a 30, 60, 90-day plan, that is time well spent.
Exactly. Because you can never take back starting at a company that you weren't pleased with. It's always going to be...
And you have to start all over again if it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what advice do you give your clients when they have had the forethought to come to you before they've begun job hunting, and they're thinking of making a career move? How do you recommend that they get started?
So when someone comes to me with the idea that they want to make a career move, they're typically coming to me for coaching services. So me helping them find that clarity and to make a career move with intention. So not taking a role just because it pays more, because that's often regretted and short-lived, but really taking the time to determine what your internal and external motivators are. Like, what do you value from an employer? What motivates you in your work? And if you can pinpoint those things, you can be really intentional about what companies you want to target and what roles you want to apply for. So working smarter instead of harder.
I think that's right. And what about that person who doesn't come to you before they've jumped in and they have begun searching and it's not going well? How do you recommend they sort of regroup?
So I think it's really important to have clarity. And if you're struggling with not landing at a company that you want to land with, then to troubleshoot what it is that's going on. So if you're not getting interviews, for example, maybe need to relook at your resume content and your networking strategy. If you're not landing job offers after an interview, maybe reevaluate what career stories you're sharing and dig deeper into the company research. So you are effectively articulating your career stories in a way that resonates with that company's pain points. And then a big piece again is those return on investment projects. If you have a clear understanding of where that company's pain points are, if you can show them what your how you would go about solving their problems, you're more likely to get hired. So working with a career coach is definitely an effective way to troubleshoot those things, because a lot of times I find people who get advice from friends or family members are also blind to the same thing. Yeah. Where as soon as somebody talks to a career coach, it's like, okay, tell me what you've done so far, what's working, what's not working, how have you been going about it? Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you considered this? And then a few small tweaks for the majority of people, it's a night and day difference.
I see that all the time. Absolutely. And also the fact that well-meaning friends and families often have the same blinders, because what's great is that they know you. And so I think they're a wonderful support system to get you through the rougher times, but they're not experts in that particular area.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Are there, you mentioned about just having clarity in general and having clarity on what your next move is. For people that can't afford to work with, coaches one-on-one, are there a couple of resources that you might recommend to help people try to navigate this a bit DIY?
Well, that you mention it, the Job Search Secret Weapon happens to have do-it-yourself kits.
That's weird. I did not mean for that to be a leading question. I was thinking more about the Department of Labor, Jolt.
No. Yeah, absolutely. So there's career coaches on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, every social media site that has free or very affordable career services. Yeah. And so love those. And now the problem with those is there is no one size fits all in a job search.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And so to have that to have that general advice, the quality general advice is fantastic. But if someone truly does need those one-on-one services, there are taxpayer funded services for individuals who are going through reduction in force, who are on unemployment, or who even meet low income standards through the Department of Labor. So it's called WIOA. It's the Workforce Initiative Opportunity Act. And so
WIOA,
WIOA.
Okay.
So WIOA, it's taxpayer funded, and they're typically located out of one-stops or unemployment centers, wherever your nearest community employment center is. And they have career coaches there who, you do have to go through the admission process. You have to show your documents. Everything has to be tracked, because
that makes sense.
If the government's paying for it, then the metrics need to be tracked. And that's a fantastic opportunity, because let's say, you've been a project manager at Sears for the past 20 years and you never needed to have your PMP. Well, going through a WIOA program, they can help you get up to speed on current job search trends with resumes and interviewing that, weren't around 20 years ago, but also those career coaches can write you grants to pursue additional certifications like project management, like digital marketing, or, Six Sigma and all of those other things, those certifications that employers, really want. I had no
idea. Okay. That is such a good thing. So WIOA.
Yes.
I'm going to put a link to that. Thank you.
And so anybody who's currently on unemployment or who has been on unemployment within a 6-month time frame can qualify for services. And you basically go to the one stop to apply, or right now I'm sure there's probably digital, but you just apply. You have to give them your information, but it's secure, and they go through a process on figuring out what your needs are. So similar to working with a paid for coach, everyone gets an individual personalized career plan, what your goals are, what your barriers are, and then start working through some of those things.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. So pivoting gears a little bit, I would like to ask you about people that I often see, which are those that they have a really diverse skill set and that they are open to a move, and they feel like their next role could maybe be in a couple of different directions. obviously you can write 18 different resumes. That's possible technically, but I'd love to hear from you what your thoughts are about that kind of an approach, and how you help people to either get clarity or position themselves when they have a couple of different things that they would like to target.
Yeah, I mean, well, you hit the nail on the head already. It is that clarity piece. You may be able to take your career in a lot of different places, but where do you want to take your career? And so if for individuals who cast their net wide, they tend to look desperate or uninspired by recruiters and hiring managers. And so you do want to be more specific and more targeted in your job search. And so when a client's working with me and say, I'm not really sure where I want to take it. Okay, well, let's look at what you did in the past. What did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy? And, if money wasn't an option, if location wasn't a factor, if all of these things that tend to impact our decision weren't a barrier or weren't a consideration, what would you be doing? And then try to focus it a little bit more on there, because I think it is important to have a career that you enjoy, because we spend so much time at work. It's such it affects your quality of life if you're not inspired at work.
So I like your point about, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's just having that clarity in your career. It's just overall going to make your life so much better. And I mear obviously is that financial piece.
Sure. That's why and there's lots of different barriers, deal breakers to consider. So it's not to not validate those, but thinking through those, I think is really, really important, because I couldn't agree more that while it feels like casting a wide net is helping you to, if you feel like you're in a beggars can't be choosers kind of situation, people often say, well, I don't want to cut off my nose to spite my face, but
right.
Appearing unfocused or uninspired, that shows in interviews. And we've heard time and time again where hiring managers say that they like for people to feel excited about wanting to work in that role or that industry or that company.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And it makes a difference even just when networking, having a specific ask. I've decided I really want to work with this type of organization. So maybe you decide, okay, I want to work for a big tech company. Okay, well, you could take 1, 2, 3, or 4 different types of roles. So then maybe narrow it down by industry first, and then start reaching out and having a specific ask. Hey, do you know anybody who works at Google? Can you introduce me? And have some conversations and see what inspires you. Does this type of role make you feel more like, wow, I'm really going to enjoy doing that. Even when it's hard, even when it's stressful, I'm going to have some type of fulfillment out of it. Or is it just, I'm going to do this and then feel exhausted and get burnt out?
Right. Right. And when you're asking for help, if you just say, I'm looking for a job, do you know anyone who's hiring? People are often at a loss because it's just such a wide net.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's like saying, I'm looking for a new house and I'm open to moving anywhere at any price and any size and any, it's nobody can help you to find what would be helpful for you. And I do feel like people do want to help.
Oh yeah, people love to help. I mean, it's in our nature to want to have community and be a support system. And now more than ever, people are glued, at home to their computer, and they just want that break. And so more and more people are doing, 15, 20-minute virtual coffees or teas, and just getting to know someone else without saying like, hey, can you get me a job? Just, hey, can you tell me about your experience? Yeah. I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And maybe they say something in their career that's like, wow, that really resonated with me. And if you're being intentional about the people that you're asking to network with, you may be surprised what you find out when you
never know where those conversations are going to lead you.
Yep, exactly.
Fascinating. So this is one of my favorite questions. There's a lot of things that people, when you someone like you who knows the career industry inside and out, and you see things that you see job seekers do that just make you shake your head and say, this is so the wrong way to go about this. What is it that you see, either because there's just a lack of education or misunderstanding that just drives you really, really nuts when it comes to job seeker mishaps that are really hurting them?
So job seekers in general, there is not a lot of education on how to effectively search for a job. And we live in a very selfish society. And so it drives me crazy when job seekers are me, instead of being considerate. And so, for my business, I'm 85% referral based, and about 15% of my clients is just random people messaging me on LinkedIn. Maybe they saw a post or something.
Yep.
The 85% of the people who I'm referred to, fantastic clients. But then I get some people who will set up a 15-minute consultation with me. I'll go through the process with them. And then they say, yeah, I want to move forward. And then we get to that call where I've, set up an hour and a half to do a fact-finding session. Mm-hmm. And then they say, oh, I have to pay you for this? Yes, you do. And if you want free advice, I give it daily.
Daily, you really do, right?
Daily.
Right.
And because of how much work I've done for workshops, and volunteering is very important to me. And so I have workshops that I facilitated that are recorded all over the place. Mm-hmm. You are welcome to watch one of those. But I have a family, and my time is valuable.
Job. Yeah.
And I've invested a huge amount of resources into my area of expertise. It's rather insulting when someone feels as though that isn't valuable. It's valuable mm-hmm. enough to ask for, but it's not valuable enough to be compensated for. And I see this not only with career coaches, but I also see this job seekers just doing it to their network. And I think it's incredibly insulting for someone that you would consider previously a friend or a good colleague or a trusted advisor to then, come to you with a big ask and not even ask you how you've been or any of the interpersonal things
or see how you can help them.
Right. Yeah. So the lack of interpersonal skills.
And where I see that loud and clear, whether I know someone or not, is in terms of how they're posting on social media. Mm-hmm. I need a job. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, and versus sharing advice and doing other things that are giving back to others as well. Yeah,
that mindset piece is very interesting to observe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, speaking about our society, my next question tackles that topic as well. There's always a lot of talk about discrimination when it comes to hiring practices. It's been around forever, and it's certainly gotten, the profile of that has been elevated even more in the past year. There's age discrimination, race discrimination, ethnicity, gender. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic, given that you have been on both sides of the hiring table, and how do you guide your clients to sort of navigate those tricky waters?
So from a job seeker's perspective, this is nothing new. It's not going away, and you can't control it as a job seeker. So instead of focusing on something you can't control, my thought process and advice would be to focus on what you can control. So if you're concerned about your sexual orientation, well, then target companies known for taking a stance. If you're concerned about age discrimination, then take your dates off of your resume, your education dates off your resume, potentially only add, the past 10 or 15 years on your resume. That's not an answer a job seeker ever wants to hear, but as your role as a job seeker, there's nothing you can do. Now, when you get hired in an organization as a leader, you can mandate certain requirements. You can provide certain training and whatnot. But coming from a job seeker, you can't control that.
That's right. No, that's right. And when you said about the sexual orientation and focus on a company that's taking a stance, I don't know if you know Mark Miller. He focuses on job search for the baby boomer generation. And he has always talked about, go on LinkedIn. If there's people that look like you and that seem to be your age, then you know that they've sort of taken some sort of a stance on that. Yeah. Versus if you go on and everyone looks like they're 24 years old, that's probably not going to be your place.
Exactly.
And, I think that you're right, because that is absolutely within your power to control, and just don't waste your energy on the companies that are clearly not, where those values don't align with yours.
Yeah. Oddly enough, one of the assignments I took when I was working for the Department of Labor, I was the AARP's Back to Work 50+ coach.
You were?
Isn't that so funny? Because I was in my 20s at the time, and I'm thinking, like, how do I do this? And then I was like, well, I'm young and I've been a recruiter, and well,
and there's reverses. I mean, there's discrimination when someone's too young too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But this group in particular, they were impacted impacted by reduction in force. Mm-hmm. So they've been at the same company for 20, 30 years.
Right.
And it's
totally blindsided.
Not only that, but realistically, you're not going to get the same compensation at a new organization. You're way over market value right now for where your skills are at in any other organization. Before, you knew your organization inside and out. That was valuable. But at a new organization, you don't have the same bargaining chip. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was an interesting experience, because, little things, for example, for baby boomers, is you can even make a joke like, oh, on Snapchat, or, yeah, I know how to use a computer.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's important to know what the biases are mm-hmm. with each generation and with each concern, so that you can control overcoming that. So you're right. Everyone thinks baby boomers and older Gen Xers can't handle technology. They also mm-hmm. think that the bias is also that they think that they know the most of anyone in the room. So whatever you can do then to show that you're collaborating.
Yep, exactly. And the reverse for the younger generation. Right. Ask for recommendations on LinkedIn to articulate your dependability, that mm-hmm. you're reliable, that you actually show up, that you take initiative.
Put your phone away during the interview.
Exactly. Yes. So there are a lot of things that are in your control if you're willing to think that way.
Yeah. No, that's true. I love that. And it saddens me to think, I know it's nothing new, but it does make me sad to think that it's not going away anytime soon. Sort of hopeful that at least people are starting to recognize that there's bias.
I think if 2020 taught us anything, it's that there are a lot of people that genuinely believe that there are no biases or discrimination, when certain people are screaming, yes, there is. I've experienced this. Mm-hmm. The previous generation experienced this. Whether that be age, ethnicity, gender, mm-hmm. sexual orientation, whatever. Last year it was just group after group after group of persons saying this is happening. And so many people were saying, no, it's mm-hmm. not. Right. That's not true. Just because that happened to you doesn't mean it's happening on a large scale. Well, it is. And so until more people are willing to say, this isn't a one-off thing.
Right.
This is
literally
deeper than
me
that.
Too. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. This is deeper than that. And it may be so subconscious, you don't even realize it.
And that's what what gave me the sort of a pandemic silver lining, is that it's helped all of us to at least be aware of it, because that's a big part of the battle. Yeah. Because we all have bias. It's human mm-hmm. nature.
Absolutely.
But how controlling, getting them from unconscious to conscious is
That
Super
is
helpful.
the number one thing that anybody can do, spend their time on, is working on their emotional intelligence. That will pay back in tenfold in their career. The higher you go in your career, the more that is important. And any place that you are at in your career, it just sets you apart from the crowd.
So do you feel like that's sort of the best investment you can make in your career?
Right now.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, yes, you absolutely need those fundamental skills, right? But if you can't work well with others, and if you don't know yourself well enough to be able to recognize what you're doing that could potentially be impacting your own career or the interaction that other people have with you, it's going to negatively affect you.
I love that. So second to last question that I want to tackle with you. So if we ever are allowed out of our houses and you're at a dinner party and someone says, I'm getting ready to job search, what are 2 things that I need? What would you say?
I think that it is incredible for people to have like a mentor or board on their team. And so, there's that quote where, you become who you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourself with driven individuals who, have different experiences than you and can help guide you towards the version of yourself that you want to be, I mean, that's an incredible resource in your career journey. And I think another thing that people absolutely need in their career search is a brag file.
Ooh.
Because the job search is really difficult emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can pull out that brag book and see all of your accomplishments, the emotional impact a business decision was for the company, it's personal for you. And so if you can remind yourself no, I was a rock star. I am a rock star. That confidence boost that sometimes you need on the job search, it will be incredibly helpful. And then obviously, in addition to remembering those career stories, remembering those accomplishments. So when you are in an interview or when you are networking, you're not forgetting what you did.
Yeah. So that
in the specifics.
Yeah, that you remember the story, the details of the story.
Exactly. Because it's so much more authentic when you can remember those things. Otherwise, it raises a red flag. Is this person exaggerating?
Right,
Why doesn't the person know the details?
Feels unauthentic. Well, those are really good answers. I love that. All right. So Teegan, last question. You have 4 jobs that you are juggling at this point. What is next for you for the rest of 2021 or maybe 2022? What are your longer term plans?
So I am currently working on my capstone project for my organizational leadership program. So I am back at Job Corps and working on developing a new department for them. And so
where it all started.
Exactly. A fate, right? So I'm very excited for that. They're doing a complete transformation of this center, and the center director here, retired Air Force, owns a tutoring company, has some really cool, innovative ideas, and that's the type of person that I enjoy working with and learning from. So I'm having a lot of fun at doing that. I am also working on my coaching certificate. For me, it's one thing to be a consultant and tell people how to do things or do it for them, but I really get a lot of enjoyment of empowering people to feel as though they're capable of doing it themselves.
Because you're teaching them to fish.
Exactly. And, although I like a return client, it brings me so much more satisfaction to know that I educated them enough for them to be able to move forward in their career. It's
like raising your kids. The best job we can do is if they don't need us after they've left the nest.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. So if people want to follow you and learn more, what I've included in your the bio that I'm going to publish is your LinkedIn URL, but also the Jolt Your Career website. Are those two best places, or is there another place that you want to point people to?
No, that's perfect. I honestly don't use my website very often, but I try to engage on LinkedIn daily.
Yeah.
And so that's the best place to interact with me at.
Perfect. When you share lots and lots of great quality advice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your insight. I've learned a lot, and I know other people will too.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. It's such a compliment for you to have me on because, I see all these big influencers and I'm like, oh, you want to talk to me? Thanks.
Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know about the big influencer part, but I am just delighted to have you in my network.
Oh, I am as well. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to The Resume Storyteller with Virginia Franco. To learn more about storytelling strategies to catch the eye of today's online STEM hiring and decision makers, please visit www.virginiafrancoresumes.com.